Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I see that more people are still joining, so we're going to wait another minute just to make sure that no one misses anything. Okay, so thank you for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Omri, and I'll host this webinar with my colleague Theo, who I'll introduce in a moment. I'll go ahead and kick things off. Today's webinar is about planning your SharePoint migration. The goal of this presentation is that you'll walk away with some key insights and metrics you can use to further improve your SharePoint or Office 365 migration. And of course, some helpful tips and action that you can utilize to set your Office 365 improvement plan into motion. So, a bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded. If you want to share this with a colleague, we'll go ahead and send an email with the recording after today's session. And of course, if you have any questions, please send them through the question box within GoToWebinar. We'll leave some time towards the end for Q&A. In regards to the agenda for today's webinar, we'll start with a very short introduction. We'll talk a bit about who we are and what we do. Then we'll jump straight into today's topic, SharePoint migration. We'll begin by presenting the various parts of the migration. After that, we'll go over some migration scenarios and a roadmap for a successful migration. Then we will discuss how to define and quantify the success of the migration. And as I said, at the end, we'll be doing a Q&A, so feel free to send your questions throughout the course of the presentation. So a bit about Cardiolog Analytics. We've been around for about 15 years, since 2005, and we're based out of Boston. Over the past 15 years, we've been focused on web analytics designed for SharePoint and now Office 365. Our flagship solution is built specifically for internal platforms, including all versions of SharePoint and the entire Office 365 suite, like Yammer, Teams, Exchange, and OneDrive. Our solution is available both on-prem and as a SaaS version based on Power BI. And now I am happy to introduce you Theo, who will begin this demonstration.
Hello, you all. I'm Theo de Groot from the Netherlands. I'm going to tell you some more about two different mindsets for migrating to SharePoint in the cloud. I've more than 11 years experience as a SharePoint architect and developer. I also have my own consultancy located in Brussels, Belgium. We are the service partner for Cardiolog Analytics in Europe, and you can ask us anything about Cardiolog products, but also for development, implementations, managed services, and migrations. We work with local consultants in your country speaking your language. Our big projects at the moment, ongoing projects, are for the federal police in Belgium and the German army. We will go on with the webinar now because I expect that we have less time for all sheets. If you migrate from a SharePoint on-premise version to the cloud, there are three main elements that fall within the migration. First, we have the migration of the pages with the custom design. The first thing I want to mention is that the site and page structure, nowadays SharePoint is based on modern pages. These are perfect looking responsive sites. It's also possible to create the classic pages as in older versions, but then you will not make optimal use of the latest features in SharePoint. And the second big issue with classic pages in the cloud is that Microsoft will change all classic pages without any custom code to modern pages between March and May of this year. So beware of that. When you have classic pages in the cloud, you will have modern pages then. Maybe it's chaos. The challenge is that the new site structure for modern pages is different from the classic site structure. Because of this, a one-on-one migration may cause problems. So a one-on-one copying of sites and pages can only be done in classic structure. For migration to modern pages, we need a restructure and can be done by using a PnP template or with PowerShell scripts. The second element in the migration is the migration of the web parts, apps, workflows, timer jobs, search, web parts, and so on. So all the available functionality in your SharePoint on premises. A major change of SharePoint in the cloud is that server-side code can not longer be used. As a result, you will probably no longer be able to use multiple web parts or timer jobs. If you still want to maintain them in the cloud, they will have to be rebuilt in a client-side language. For example, JavaScript or with the SharePoint framework. So in TypeScript. This is generally the most consuming part in the migration to the cloud. The third main part concerns the migration of all lists, libraries, content types, site columns, list items, and documents, so the data migration. And this data migration is exactly what this short webinar is all about. If you want to migrate lists and libraries or the containing contents to SharePoint Online, you can choose between two rather different approaches or scenarios. The first, which I will explain, is the static scenario. And the second scenario refers to the second is the dynamic scenario. The static scenario refers to a complete copy. So all lists, libraries, content types, and site columns are copied one-on-one to the new environment, including all data and documents. We also call this scenario forklifting. That's why I make a forklifting image. Static copying refers to the most common methods of migration. The principle is that with an available tool, all lists, libraries, fields, content types, list items, and documents are copied to the new environment. The characteristic of this method is that the metadata model is completely identical to the previous situation. Forklifting has a number of advantages and disadvantages. The first advantage is that we need no new list and library infrastructure for the migration. We just copying. So the migration can take place quickly without a design phase. However, without a design phase, things can be overlooked and cause problems at a later stage. So maybe it's important to have a design phase anyway. So not only an advantage, but also a disadvantage. The second advantage, because of the fast turnaround time, savings can be made on consultancy or employee costs. Of course, it is important that the migration is carried out by someone with knowledge of the business. Otherwise, he or she is not knowing what he or she is doing. The last advantage is because the data model and structure remain the same. Users can continue to work seamlessly without any instruction or training. The only change for the users is the new URL to use for them. Of course, there are also some major disadvantages. The new environment in the cloud has not been restructured. The old structure remains with the old fields, content types, and lists. In short, you are stuck in a design from years ago. If I was your migration consultant, my first question should be, does your company really want to work with the structure of 10 years ago? The only possible answer should be no. The second disadvantage is that the content has not been cleaned up, so all unnecessary, deprecated, and polluting documents and data are copied along with it. A migration should be a new start with a clean sheet, but now you are stuck with old garbage. The third disadvantage is that copying documents to Office 365 is relatively slow because of throttling by Microsoft. Your connection can be very quick, but Microsoft will put the documents in a waiting list to transfer them one by one. So the speed of Microsoft is leading and not your speed. And the last disadvantage that I will tell you is that only up to 5,000 documents can be copied from a library at a time because of list view throttling. Very big lists has to be migrated part by part with a filter to avoid more than 5,000 results. We all know about this 5,000 problem when we work with SharePoint. Tools for static migration are ShareGate, AvePoint, and Quest. Quest is a new name for MetaLogic before. Now I will talk about dynamic migrations. Dynamic migration is a modern way of working. In this process, we think first carefully about a new, more efficient and better structure of all content like lists, libraries, data, and documents. A great opportunity for a new beginning with a perfect data model fully focused on the current situation within your company. It is therefore important to determine which documents are to be migrated and which are not. This type of migration requires, therefore, a detailed analysis and a detailed plan in advance. The most logical way to get this plan on paper is by setting up a project team, including an experienced SharePoint specialist and one or more key SharePoint users within your company who is being asked questions within the business. For example, your site collection admins. What happens during the migration process is that metadata from documents can be renamed, calculated, filtered, mapped, and all other stuff to other content types or libraries. For example, we can create a new library automatically with clicking only one button. And it's possible to migrate all documents with the word order in the file name and create dates in 2019 to a library called orders 2019. All other metadata can be mapped to at the same run. So very quick to make a different structure and hopefully a much better structure. This dynamic process can be done by a tool called Fusion. It's a product from Denmark and is running on your local server or desktop. Dynamic migration has also advantages and disadvantages, of course. Is that after the migration, a new improved and optimized data structure is available, focused on new situation. So if your design documents were good enough, you'll have created the ideal world. Also an advantage, there are only documents and data available that has to be migrated. So the new environment is cleaned up. Yeah. The third advantage is that Fusion can bypass throttling by Microsoft using your App ID. Because of this, the document transfer is relatively fast. The documents will not be in a waiting list. Last year, I tested the speed with my glass fiber connection at home. The top speed was uploading 90 gigabytes per hour. I can tell you, this is a bizarre speed. The last advantage I will tell is that there are no list view throttling in Fusion. So the number of documents or list items per list migration is unlimited. Cool, isn't it? A disadvantage is that it takes a lot of thinking beforehand about the desired improvements and cleaning up, usually by a hired consultant. Birthday IT can, of course, be the perfect consultant for you. That was an ad, sorry. The second disadvantage is that at the moment we have only one tool for dynamic migration, Fusion, so we cannot make choices. On the other hand, Fusion works great. The second part of the webinar will show you the roadmaps for static and dynamic migrations. For the static migration, you have to start with analyzing. Make a detailed inventory of your complete farm. So of all site collections, sites, lists, libraries, pages, workflows, content types, site columns, permissions, and so on. The second step is to create your custom code. I told you about the client-side requirements in the clouds and not the server-side. So to recreate all server-side applications to client-side ones, we have to use the SharePoint framework or JavaScript. Time jobs are not possible anymore in the clouds, but maybe you can use something else for that. Birthday IT can do anything with this work for you. The next step is the data and document migration. Forklift all content from A to B and get an exact copy of the new environment. The last step for static migration is to test if all content is migrated well, and if not, we have to repair it. We can repair with the same tool we used before or do it manually. One of the test bullet points is check if the created by and modified by fields are not changed to the system admin. Because when that happens, we lose our history of the authors and the changes. That can be bad. The roadmap for dynamic migration also starts with analyzing. Also start with a detailed inventory of your farm. So all site collections, sites, lists, libraries, pages, workflows, content types, site columns, permissions, and so on. The next step is design the new data architecture for the optimized structure, and also decide what content we will not migrate. Write all this in a design document and complete it with a detailed migration plan. The next step is creating a new site structure, site columns and content types with the PnP templates or the PowerShell scripts. The next step is recreating all server-side codes to client-side codes, like the static scenario. This is possible with the SharePoint framework or with JavaScript. The fifth step is the dynamic migration with Fusion. Follows the detailed migration plan to migrate all list libraries, data, and documents. And the last step is a last incremental migration. Oh, it's too quick, sorry. Migration to transfer all new documents that are created after your dynamic migration. Now you can go live. Here's a small recap. We have three main elements to migrate: sites and pages, custom functionality, and data. The data migration can be static or dynamic or something in between. The biggest, I told you about advantages and disadvantages about the two scenarios, but the big advantage of dynamic migration is the new structure that is the best for your company. So I think this is very important, and we always have to talk about this when I am doing your migration. This PowerPoint contains the roadmaps for static and dynamic migration, and Omri will send it to you. Here are my email addresses, my website address, and Omri will tell you about the important adoption process now to complete your migration. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Theo. That was very interesting and insightful. So I want to go back to how do we know what we want to migrate, and also how do we know if the migration is even successful? So we operate in this matter in three pillars. The first one is the monitor step. We want to make sure that we know exactly what is happening to get the deepest understanding of how people use the platform. But we have discovered that sometimes the monitor step, the metrics and numbers, are just not enough. We want to engage with our end users, ask for their experience, let them know what new features we have. And with these two steps, you can really enhance and make sure that your entire migration process is being successful. So why do we need analytics to help with our SharePoint migration? It's been said before, but I'll say it again. You can only manage what you can measure. It's very common that organizations don't have a concrete understanding of what's going on their SharePoint environment, which makes the migration process much more challenging. As I said, the key is that we can only manage what we measure. If we don't know what's going on with our portal before or during our SharePoint migration, We're going to see some of these challenges like lack of training, wasting storage space because we're migrating all outdated documents, and struggling to encourage users to adopt to the new portal. We want to use analytics in all of these three stages before the migration. Understand what the end users actually need and which things we can leave behind. By leveraging analytics, we can be aware of how people are using the portal and how we can prevent issues before the migration even begins. Next, we want to make sure we know what's happening while we are migrating, comparing the older version to the newer version when we go hybrid. And this is a very crucial part to understand the patterns of usage in the old and in the new version. And after the migration, people tend to get too relaxed without understanding that this process takes a long time. And in that time, we want to make sure that we take action with the accurate data, um, data that will help us navigate our organization through this migration. Organizations may also have difficulty determining what is a successful migration. What are the right measurements that organizations should use? Determining the success of a migration is based upon the KPIs an organization sets when they begin the migration process. All of these metrics should be included in the success of an overall migration. On my screen, you can see a few examples of KPIs that are goals that we should set. By leveraging analytics, you can identify KPIs and uncover key insights about your portal usage before, during, and after your migration to make sure your rollout is a success. And now I want to dive into the metrics themselves. What metrics can we use and what they teach us? So we're looking at Cardiolog Analytics presented with Power BI. On the far left side of my page, you can see many tabs. So each tab is a pre-built dashboard that all of our customers gets from day one. And you can see under the portal tree filter or SharePoint hierarchy that we are monitoring several environments at the same time. So it doesn't matter which version you have or which version you're going to, whether it's to the cloud or maybe you want to stay on-prem and update your SharePoint, we can monitor all environments simultaneously and generate a single report as you can see here. And right here, I can drill down SharePoint's hierarchy and I can see all of the pages all the way down to the library and lists. And I can click on any of these pages. And as you will see, the entire dashboard will filter itself to show me data for the requested specific page. I can click on multiple pages, or if we want to be specific, take this one step at a time, we can do so. Maybe start by analyzing a specific site collection and move onwards. So this is one way to filter the data through the different pages. But let's say I want to tackle a specific content type. So I can do so as well. If you look at the top of my page, you can see the upper tabs. Each one is a different content, whether it's blogs, community member, comments, or any other content type that I can use to understand what people are doing in the portal. Now I'm going to full screen the table in the middle of my screen. This table gives us some basic metrics, whether it's the page view, the average time, the size of each page. Here we can understand the basics, which pages are being used and which pages are not being used. So by default, I'm showing the most viewed pages, but I can also go the other way around and show you the least viewed pages. This can help you understand before the migration which pages or lists or libraries you really want to migrate and leave all the outdated stuff behind. Save yourself all the effort and all the space. But I can also leverage the most used pages by letting people know that they are more accessible in the new platform. Maybe the new platform we will have a top 10 most viewed pages on our home page. Next, I want to take a look under the adoption column right here. We can see the SharePoint's usage through the different departments. So again, I can click on any of these departments, and through that I can really understand what each department uses, which pages are more popular in different departments. So right here, let's say I want to enroll a training session, but I don't have enough budget now to run it through the entire organization. So now I know which departments needs it the most, and I can offer it specifically to them. So all these numbers and metrics, it's really hard sometimes to understand what's going on. I mean, okay, so these pages are not being viewed, or people are searching something um, that has failed, and we want to quantify to get an understanding the bottom line, what's happening. So in this KPI dashboard, we can really quantify with numbers how much money is being wasted for no reason. So we can take a look at the average salary per hour. And again, you can modify it to your organization. And the user license cost per month or the storage cost per gigabyte. And this allows us to understand what actions actually waste money. How many money is being spent because the system is too slow? Or how much money is being wasted because of failed searches or creating content that no one really uses? So after seeing the general idea, I want to dive into each statistic that will help us understand how we can um, make our migration the best it can be. So we saw several ways to filter the data. So here we can see another one. Maybe we want to take a look at the different offices that we have. Again, let's say we want to try a training session for our organization. So we can try it on a specific office, see the results, and after that, we can enroll it to the entire organization. Now I want to take a look at search. What are people searching and what results they're getting? On the far left side of my page, you can see the most search terms. And if I'll click on business data, which is the most searched term, I can see that business data has been searched almost 1,800 times. So 1,800 times 60 seconds per search, that's a huge waste of time for your organization. But now that we know that that's what people want to know that that's what people are searching for, we can help them get to this data more easily. And again, on the top right side of my page, we can quantify how much money are we losing because people are not being able to find what they're looking for. And the metric that actually worries here is this one that tells us that only about half of the people clicked on any of the results after searching business data. This means that half of the people had to go and waste even more time searching for the answer elsewhere, maybe asking a colleague or searching online. Next, we want to take a look at the results we're getting. So people searched business data and what results they got and on which results they clicked. So right on the left side of my page, again, we can see the search terms, and we can see here the list of all the pages that came up in the results. So let's say I want to understand what people are clicking after they're searching business data. We will see which pages have come up and how many times people clicked on them after searching business data. But another metric that really helps us is this one right here, the average click search result position. So I know that on average, this result is the 19th result, which means that they had to scroll down all the way to 19 to click on this result. And this really helps us to understand why people are wasting time when they are searching. Next, I want to take a look at the slow pages. Here we can see the list of our pages and how long does it take them to load. Again, this can waste a lot of money, but not only by waiting, but if we have many pages that are very slow and it takes a couple of seconds for them to load, that will really decrease the amount of people that will want to use our platform because no one wants to wait 2 seconds for each page these days. Next, I want to dive into the page interaction. That's a very interesting stat that allows us to understand within each page what people are clicking on. So I can click on a specific page and I can see the elements within this page, how many people clicked on this element. This really helps us to understand how we need to design the new pages. And not only design, but now not only do we know which pages we want to migrate um, to the new platform, here we can know which parts within each page we want to migrate. Next, we can take a look at the common navigation, how people move from page to page. So this allows us to understand if the entire platform is user-friendly. Can people move, let's say, how they move from home? So the previous page is home, and I can see the list of next pages, what people clicked after they clicked home, where they went. And this allows us to understand how we can build the entire platform to make it more user-friendly. Again, save a lot of time. Here we can detect that there's a very popular site, but it usually page, but it takes usually 3, 4, even 5 steps to get to, which is a huge waste of time that we can save now that we're migrating. Here we can take a look at the portal resources. So a big part, obviously, of Office 365 is not only consuming content, but also creating it. We want to understand what people are creating. So here we can see exactly what type of content, and we can see the size, and through time, here we can understand that if we had training sessions of how to create content and uploading it to SharePoint, here we can see the results of this training session. And now I want to take a look of the amount of resources being wasted for content that is being created but not being used. Again, here we can see the size by content, and, and this right here allows us to understand content creation time in minutes, and our tool allows you to understand out of the entire content that's being created, which content is not being used at all, and then tells you how much money is being wasted out of the unused content. So as I said in the beginning, after seeing the numbers and metrics, sometimes it's just not enough. We want to understand the experience of the individuals. We want to take action with the data and let them know what new features we have or what plans do we have. So now we're looking at Cardiolog Engage, which is a tool that allows you to set a campaign and achieve any goal you set, whether it's to promote a page, notify people about a change, or have a survey, ask people for their opinion. But I'll show you very quickly how you can actually create your own campaign from scratch. So first we'll choose the audience. Maybe it's everyone, telling them about the deployment of the migration or the development of the new HR site, for example. But let's say after the migration, we want to drive adoption. So we have discovered in the beginning that the marketing department are not really using SharePoint. So maybe I want to contact them. But maybe I don't want to contact everyone within the marketing department because some of them do use SharePoint. Maybe I want to contact the inactive users. So people who did not visit for more than 14 days. Next, we'll choose the channel we want to contact them. Maybe it's an end-up message, like a pop-up that appears on their SharePoint screen, or a header or a footer that goes on their SharePoint home page. But for our example, marketing department users who do not use SharePoint, they won't see all these pop-ups. So maybe they'll get a targeted text message or an email telling them to check it out. Next, we can text and design it in any way we'd like. We can write a title and a description. And we can ask for our end users replies. Maybe ask them to rate the new site or a specific new feature that we have after the migration, or to ask them if they like a specific feature before we migrate it into the cloud. We can also ask them a question, receive their full answer. After that, we'll choose a trigger. Maybe it's scheduled next Monday morning when we are moving these amount of people to the cloud, or maybe it's triggered by a certain action when they are scrolling down a specific page, viewing a page, interacting with any specific feature, or when they are viewing a search result, for example, for more than 45 seconds. So let's say if we go back that someone searched business data, and for 45 seconds, he's going through the results, not clicking on any of them because he doesn't understand them or he thinks that they won't help them. After 45 seconds, a pop-up appears on his screen asking him what went wrong or what are you searching for? And with these type of answers, you can really understand what you need to migrate, how you would like to design or to change in your platform before, during, and after the migration. So after having both the analytics, the numbers, and the end user's experience, you can really leverage the entire process to get better results, not only to keep up with the time and migrate to the cloud, but to really take this opportunity and improve the entire platform, make sure that more people use it properly, that features are being accessed, or people that or features that are not being used can be left out. And thank you very much. Now we're going to answer some questions. So if you have questions, you can submit it now. And I see that there are a couple of questions for Theo.
Okay, what questions?
So can you tell us a little bit about Fusion? How it
Yes, of course. I'm working with Fusion for more than a year now. The owner is a friend of mine in that year, but it's a tool, very cool, to do everything with data in and out your SharePoints, through SharePoints, but also from Excel sheets to SharePoints, from your file share to SharePoints. You can transfer data, but you can do it dynamically. So you can put calculations on it, filters. Um, at the moment, I'm making a design document for a client, and she's working with SharePoint 2010 with folder structure and no metadata. So they will migrate to a much newer version, of course, for SharePoint, and they will put the folder name in a metadata field in the new environment. And it's very simple. I say to Fusion, um, read the folder name and put it in a metadata field. So it's very simple. Fusion is free, but for document migrations to SharePoint, you need a premium version. But all the other stuff, and I can write 5-6 pages with functionalities, is completely for free. It can handle document sets very well. It's very quick, and yeah, that's what I can tell you about Fusion.
Okay, thank you very much, Theo. I see that
I'm,
there's
I'm a
another
Dutchman.
question. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a Dutchman, and the free, the topic that is completely free. That's always good for me because Dutchmen don't want to pay. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your answer, Theo. I see here
Yeah.
another question asking about Cardilog Analytics. So they ask, where is the data being stored? So thank you very much for the question. So the data can be stored as a SaaS solution in Microsoft Azure. But if you would like, everything that you saw today is also available on-prem if you want to have your data in-house. So I see that we don't have any other question at the moment. So I appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. As explained, we will send a recording of this webinar if you want to share it with a colleague. And we are also very happy to schedule a call to discuss your specific needs, to go through your migration process, to understand what you need in order to make your migration the best it can be. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much, Theo, and have a great evening.
Yes. Bye. Thanks for listening.